Having an exceptional relationship with your spouse affects every single aspect of your life and is crucial for experiencing your dream life together. I'm Rob Murgatroyd.
And I'm Kim Murgatroyd. Listen in on our honest, filter-free conversations as we navigate life and business together without killing each other.
You'll learn by osmosis how to transform the friction you feel in your relationship into a purposeful foundation that will allow you to grow together.
Welcome to the Friday Podcast.
Kimberly, up-leveling Murgatrini, how are you?
Murgatrini? That's like a little Murgatroyd.
Did I ever tell you, when I went to chiropractic school, there was an Indian guy that owned a pizza place. Can we say Indian guys?
That just made me laugh because of Sebastian Maniscalco's most recent Netflix thing. He talked about that, but go ahead. I don't care.
It's worth it. Maniscalco goes down the line now of like what you can say and what you can't say. So he's clearly wanting to talk about how people, are now identifying as certain genders. But what he says is a kid in my daughter's, he's got like a 5-year-old or whatever, a kindergarten class. Kid in my daughter's kindergarten class is identifying as a lion. Now, it was really smart of him to do that because there's no lion group that is going to be offended by him.
He was so funny, though, because he's like, if the kid identifies as a lion, put him in a goddamn cage and throw him a piece of meat. And that made me laugh. But anyway, so go ahead. Tell me about your childhood.
Well, what Sebastian Maniscalco said was, years ago, I'd say, the Puerto Rican guy is the one that's around the corner. You can't say that now. You can't say it's the Puerto Rican guy, it's the Chinese guy, it's the black guy. Nobody's allowed to be anything other than inclusive into one. Am I right?
Yes. So you're going to tell me about your Indian friend?
Yeah, the Indian guy. So, his last name was Patel, which is a very
common
Indian name. What do you think he called the name of his pizza place?
Hell's Pizza.
Padellini's. It was genius.
That's amazing.
It was genius. It wasn't until like 2 years into school where I kept going and I didn't know he owned it. I thought he was like the Indian guy that worked there.
Yeah.
And so I finally said, wait a minute, you own this? And he said, yeah. I said, why'd you call it Padellini's? I mean, he's like, is there somebody Italian in your family? He says, no, my last name's Patel. I went, you added an "ini" at the end of it? He's like, yeah. I was like, that's fucking genius.
That is genius, actually.
All right. Speaking of genius, I'm going to set this up and then you'll steamroll me. So we have for years been in a world that, if I am honest, is very proactive in climbing the ladder of what can you do for me? If you're at conferences, if you're at events, it's sort of like you're deliberately putting yourself in an environment of people that will help whatever it is that you're working on. And I'm going to I'll make something up that's not entirely true, but to give you the idea.
So we're talking about networking.
Networking, yeah. If I want to be, if I'm trying to grow my podcast, then I'm going to put myself in a world of top podcasters because they are going to help me grow my podcast, right? If I want to create a mastermind, I'm going to put myself in an environment of people that can either join my mastermind or can help me facilitate my mastermind. And I am guilty as charged of doing that in many different areas. And there is something that we've noticed recently when it comes to your community, up-leveling your tribe. Do we still use tribe anymore? I don't know. But when it comes to up-leveling your community, we've noticed that things are done a little bit differently here in Italy when it comes to that. So I'll let you start it and then I'll jump in.
Well, it just dawned on me as you were talking. You were a chiropractor.
I was.
And you, a couple of times a year, would go to chiropractic networking events or chiropractic seminars, and you would network with the other chiropractors to figure out what they were doing, what works for them, and you would help each other learn new things. And so in the, let's call it the online digital world of courses and podcasts and all the flavors of influencer
With big
type
hats.
things with big hats. In that world, there are similar things, right? There are mastermind events and there are just all kinds of little things that you can go to and do. The difference, I think, between the dentist going to the dental conference and doing it and the wannabe successful influencer or whatever going to the other events, I think what has happened is it has bled over into their entire life. And let me explain. So when you're a chiropractor, let's say you work 9 to 5. After 5 o'clock, you're not coming home and doing chiropractic shit, right? You're tapping into another life. So any job in insert whatever job into chiropractor. When you have a 9 to 5, a set hour type job, you're doing the job, but it's not your entire life. When you go and you become a solopreneur, let's call it, and you're trying to develop courses and online things and all of this stuff, it becomes your entire life. It becomes your whole personality, okay? All of you is being consumed by this animal. So it becomes your social media. It becomes your 12-hour workday for a lot of these people. It becomes, we got to grind it out. And it becomes your peer group, your friend group. It becomes literally your entire life. And so what I'm seeing right now is people posting, and I'm seeing things like, in 2023, I'm only going to up-level my circle and hang out with people. This sounds ridiculous as I'm saying it, but it's like top influencers saying this shit. I'm only going to hang out with people that are doing as good as me or better, so I can up-level my circle. And then my brain instantly goes, well, if you want to leg hump all the people doing better than you, so because the 5 people you surround yourself with, well, why are they hanging out with you? Because you're not doing as good as they are. So what would be their reason for hanging out with you and helping you ascend? It's just interesting to me because you'll have these people that want to ascend this ladder of success, right? And so they look at somebody who's 10 steps ahead of them and they leg hump because they want to get into that peer group. But then they look at the people that are trying to get into their peer group as not good enough. I'm like, how do you not see that? What's the phrase? Like if you're
the average of your 5 friends?
No, the one where it's like, if you're climbing the ladder, don't forget to turn around and help the other person up the ladder. And it's interesting to me because it's like the people that want to ascend the ladder aren't necessarily turning around, or they might be turning around, but there's a paywall. You know what I mean? That for them to help. I don't know. I'm becoming disenchanted by this. If your entire personality is your solopreneur business, I'm bored with you.
All right, that's a great setup. Now let me take a right turn and let me take you down a different road. What we have naturally found ourselves falling into. Now understand that everything that Kim just described was largely
our life
and largely behaviors that were reinforced by our surroundings, right? That was just the world we were in, whether we were in LA or whatever. It was just kind of how it's done. Oh, you got to know so-and-so. He knows.
And by the way, I'm not saying there's anything bad with networking. I'm saying it shouldn't be your whole life and your entire peer group. If you're making your decisions on who your best friends are based on if they can help you with your book launch, that's fucked up. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And we never did that. We made friendships. We made true friendships. But the networking part is definitely, it's like, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. I'm passionate.
Yes, and I'm going to actually add another layer to this. I noticed something. We had if you follow me on social media, you'll see that I devoted 3 long posts to making one dinner on a Sunday.
Well, because you devoted 3 long days to making that meal to be eaten on a Sunday.
So I won't use the time here, but if you want to see what it's about, just take a look at my Instagram, and they're all They're all
Look
consecutive.
for the ragu.
Look for the ragu, and you'll see us, going out, picking up the ingredients, the next day cooking the ingredients with friends, and on the third day he rose. So what I observed, and actually Kim just pointed it out as we were talking about this off mic, is that the world we're in now, and by world I mean the people that we're surrounding ourselves with, they, as I go around the table in my mind, and this is not in any way to sound braggy, it's to make a point. The people at the table were academics. They were in the stock and bond market. They were in the education world. They were lawyers. They were authors. They were writers. And I can go on. So you'll see that world is not a particular incestuous world that we were in, which is where, it's just everybody is they're all influencer-y, and they're all just trying to find the next hack to gain a bigger audience to sell more shit to, right? We are surrounding ourselves by people, wait for it, that we actually want to have conversations with, that we actually want to learn from, that we actually want to share love with, that we want to have our children be together and be influenced by each other, that we want to blow some steam off with, right? So we are in no way leg humping, and we are connecting. And if you look at the blue zones, and if you look at studies on community, what you'll find is that in continents like Europe, people living longer, one of the reasons why they live longer is because they put themselves in communities. And there was a very sanitized world, and I'm not knocking America or Canada or any of, North America, for example, or Australia. I'm not knocking that kind of thing and just saying the old world is the only way to do it. I'm really not. I'm saying that I was guilty. We were guilty as anybody in being very intentional and contrived in trying to grow a business. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. In the way that you described, where a medical doctor, a chiropractor, or a dentist, whatever, is going to a convention, it's very obvious and very overt that we are going to a networking meeting, right? That's why we're here. It's a conference to meet other plastic surgeons, right? That's why we're here. What happens in the worlds that you're just describing is that, like you said really well, it bleeds over into your life. And instead of going to the conference at 2:00 on, Friday until Saturday night or whatever, where it's those 48 hours where you're doing something, it becomes your world. I am going to go jogging with this guy that I don't really like, but he's kind of the guy to know. And if I know this guy, I'm going to be able to know that guy, and you get lost.
Which, by the way, guys do this with golf, but there's an intention around the business, but it doesn't stop. Like the businessman that takes the potential client golfing, like there's an obvious agreed upon, this is a business golf trip. Do you know what I mean? Like this is the bleed over for me is the crazy thing. Here's what I want you to do. If you think that you possibly fall in this category, and whatever your business is, whatever you're building, maybe you have courses, maybe you have a podcast, whatever it is. If you decided to throw in the towel, wave the white flag and say, I'm done, and I'm going to start gardening, and I'm going to go and get a job, like a regular 9-to-5. Would those people that are in your current peer group, would they still be your peer group? Would they still be your friends? I'm not talking about a networking group. There's a difference for me. There are people in our world of courses and podcasts and whatever, that if I have a question, I'll reach out to, because our relationship is about this world. It's not about, they're not coming over for Sunday ragu. And so I know right now, if Rob and I said, we're done with this podcast, we're going to open up a laundromat, my Sunday ragu family wouldn't change at all. But if we quit this podcast, a lot of the people we network with, we would no longer have a connection to. Now, that's not to say you're not going to go to a conference or a seminar and you're going to find one or two people that become lifelong friends. That's not to say that can't happen, because our literal best friends on this planet, we found at a chiropractic seminar. But for the one couple that we found at the chiropractic seminar, or maybe the two couples, there was 9 million others that if Rob was still a chiropractor, he might call and say, hey, I have a question about billing, and it would work out. And here's the thing. For me, it's the intention. Oh, it's the intention. When I see people that I know don't like each other, but they are together and promoting each other in a friendship way, not a business way, but in a friendship way, when I see them together and I'm going, I literally know that you don't like her or you don't like him, and yet you're chumming it up for the camera for a different purpose. To be honest, I begin to question my relationships with the same people, because then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Am I not good enough now because I'm in a different circle? Or is that why you're reaching out? Like, the intention becomes different. And we didn't really see this until we had the opposite. We're in a community here in Florence where, if you can imagine, a lot of expats, they make it in their industry and then they say, I want a different life. I want a simpler life. I want to experience living in Italy. And they come to Florence. We are in a world, we are in the leg humper's dream world. You have no idea. And if you leg hump, you're basically out. No one talks about business. No one talks about anything.
Ever.
Now, natural things might come up, like Rob's writing a book. He's talking to friends about this book that he's writing or about an article he just wrote for a local magazine. And it organically turns into, I think you would have a movie here. Or I think you would have like a couple of books in this. And I got a guy that I'd love to connect you with, but it's organic. It is not fake. It's not contrived. It's not intentional in that way. And I would argue, Rob, that your network here is 4 million times more powerful than any network you've ever had. And it was organically grown. And the desire to help each other, if ever it arose. Like, I was talking to a friend the other day, and she's an artist. And I told her, I said, well, what's your next step? What do you think you're going to do? And she goes, I really want to put more energy into my art. I said, why don't you do an art gallery? Why don't you do a pop-up? And she's like, I've been thinking about it. I said, do you realize how many amazing friends you have here that would absolutely die to support you in this thing? She said, I know. And it's true, but it's not, she didn't accumulate this network so someday when she decided to have a gallery, she could call them. She accumulated a network because she really organically, naturally loves to be around these people, and they love to be around her, and friends support friends. And so that organically happens, right? It's not a contrived thing. And so now we have this comparison of this world we were in that is very contrived versus the world we're in now that is very organic. And yet the network is amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's something that comes to mind. I'm reading a book called Strength to Strength, and it's a fantastic book. I would strongly recommend it, particularly if you're over 30 years old. And there's a chapter in the book where he talks about a moment where he's sitting with his son. His son's like 18, 19 years old, and he wants to spend some time with his kid, and they're having lunch. The phone, he gets a text, and he's like, I'm sorry, I got to take this. This is a friend of mine. A friend of mine. And he walks outside, he takes the call, he comes back in, and his son says to him, was that a real friend or was that a deal friend?
Ooh, that's really good.
And the dad goes, what? He said, was it a real friend or a deal friend? He goes, what's the difference? He said a deal friend is somebody that you have some business relationship in some way that you're going to help him, he's going to help you, you're going to advise him, he's going to advise you. But if you didn't have that particular business thing in common, you wouldn't be there. The real friend is the one who's actually your friend that you can go out and have lunch with and have a conversation about your marriage or your kids or, the weather, but somebody that you really want to be with. And so much of these points that you're making around these different types of people fall into the category for me of deal friends. And, it's not necessarily that you're aggressively working on a real estate deal. You get the idea. It's a category of friends that otherwise wouldn't be there had the category of your life not be there. When I think about our friends and I think about the relationship we have with all of them, not one of them are related to a deal in any way. What they are people that we find interesting, that we feel like we can connect with, they can connect with us, and we can learn from. Whether, I'm spending 3 days with, somebody learning how to make a proper Neapolitan ragu, or I'm talking to a friend about what it's like to make a movie, or I'm talking to, I had a wonderful conversation with somebody, this weekend, and we were talking about climate change. Do you know what I mean? Which I know nothing about. And so having people that are in your life that are not deliberately designed to network, to help you become more upwardly mobile, but people that you really just want to have meaningful conversations with, you know what happens? You have meaningful conversations with them.
But meaningful conversations that are not about what are you doing next? What business are you going to be launching?
But really, how can you help me?
Or how can you help me? Like, not those conversations.
You know what I hate? Let me tell you what I hate. I just dawned on me what I hate. I hate when someone reaches out and says to me, "What can I do to help you?"
Because you know that they're
the only reason they are asking me what they can do to help me is because they want me to help them at some point in the future.
Exactly.
I hate that. And it's disguised in some bullshit thing of I'm trying to help. How can I best serve you? That's another one I fucking hate. I didn't order a hamburger from you. You don't have to serve me.
So here's what I love about having friends that are in all different areas that are real friends and not deal friends. And that actually really, really hit me because I'm going back now through the catalog of friends that we have had over the years. And I can literally play a game of deal friend, real friend, deal friend, real friend. And as soon as the deal or whatever connection, like I said, whatever you're doing now, like if we quit the podcast, who would still be around? If we quit events, who would still be around? And I think that when you go to these events, like I said, we're not knocking networking. We have plenty of deal friends. You just have to know that if your entire network and your entire purpose in life, and every week, Rob and I only have a couple of dinners that we can do out a week, right? We have kids, we have school, we have all of that. And I assume that most people only have a couple of dinners out. Are you choosing those dinners based on deal friends, or are you choosing them based on real friends? And if they're mostly going to deal friends, and be honest with yourself. There's nothing wrong with networking. There's nothing wrong with having people in your life to bounce business ideas off of. And you might really love these people. Like I said, our best friends came out of a chiropractic conference and we used to talk about how we can grow, and it's not a bad thing. But if your entire network of people are deal friends, then it's a problem. And yes, some deal friends can turn into real friends, and that's totally cool too. But why do you like them? Here's the other thing. When I think about Darren and Tony and meeting them at a chiropractic event, we like them because we liked them. It wasn't because they had something we wanted or they were doing something we wanted to do. There was no backdoor intention. We actually just wanted to hang out with them. And that's the other part. Like, you can have people in your similar world, because God, it's so nice to talk to another podcaster about the throes of podcasting or something like that. And if you like them truly, truly, truly for who they are, here's the test. Can you sit at a dinner with a friend and not talk about business with them? Talk about other things. I think that's a real friend. Talk about your relationships. Talk about what's going on with your kids. Talk about the books you've read or whatever. Those are real friends. But if your whole conversation is about business, they're deal friends.
I'm going to tell you that most of my friends back in the States would be incapable of having conversations that I'm going to go out on a limb. And I'm going to
be careful. It's scary out there.
I will. I'm going to tell you that most of my friends in the States, if I said to them, we're going to go out to dinner, but the subject of business is off limits,
they wouldn't come.
Not only wouldn't they come, I don't think they could do it.
Well,
I don't think that.
Do you know what bothers me?
I don't think that's a muscle that they have.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to give you one more. Ready? I'll use the word trigger. This will trigger you.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ask me to come to dinner. Say, I'm getting a group of friends together for a great friend dinner.
I know what you're going to say.
Hold on. Say to me, no,
Yeah.
this is really good.
Yeah.
Say to me, I'm having a Sunday ragu at my house and inviting a group of people over.
I'm having a Sunday ragu at my house and I'm inviting a few people over. You want to come?
Who's going to be there?
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
If someone says that to you, they are a deal friend.
They're a deal friend. Okay, so we're going to wrap up with this last point, and that is, if you are intentionally at a place, we have a lot of people who listen to this podcast that are younger, right? And they are in that stage of their life where they're cutting their teeth, they're growing, they want to be innovative, they need help in growing. Being intentional about surrounding yourself with people that are more financially successful than you, it works. There's no question about it. People are connectors. They want to connect to other people. So if you are a good person and you have some value to offer, being intentional about putting yourself in rooms with people more successful than you will help you to grow. But full stop, what it's going to give you is it will give you a leg up in the leg humping world. It will give you a leg up in your business. But don't confuse that or them with friends, because they're not. They are people that you're choosing to be around to help you grow and go up the corporate ladder or go up the financial ladder, or you get the idea. If you are at a place in your life where community is important to you, meaning is important to you, diversity in topics is important to you, and you are so focused on business that you can use a little dose of some other areas of your life to have conversations in, then be intentional about choosing somebody just because they're fucking interesting, or just because you like them, or just because maybe they're even different than you and they offer an opposing opinion where you're not, 7 influencers sitting around in big hats talking about whatever,
giving the same exact catchphrases.
The same, hashtag. Well, give me a hashtag. Live your best life, right?
Whatever.
You get the idea. So just know the difference between the two. Okay, is our work done here?
Our work is done.
That's it, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Come grow together with us. Rate and review this podcast. This is one small way to show us some love and tell us that you value these conversations.
Leaving a 5-star review and written comment helps get this show into the ears of other couples just like you.